So, if you've been following the channel for a bit now, you'll know I've been doing this little thing called the Pokemon Mainline Retrospect, where I've been taking a look at every single mainline Pokemon game. And while those videos have been really fun to make, do you want to know the biggest issue I've had? Picking which version to play. Now, originally, this was fine. I didn't really care which version I played. I was aware the third versions changed a bit more than the originals, but I didn't think it was that much. Until I checked Bulbapedia, and ever since then I failed to understand the appeal of third versions. From people wanting Pokemon Z to Stars, I just don't get it. So today, let's take a look at why I don't like these third versions. And I do want to point out, I won't be talking about Pokemon Yellow because I honestly don't count it. I know it is a third version, but it was obviously made purely to promote the anime, and it wasn't made to improve bugs or make genuine changes to the original Red and Blue. It was just an anime tie-in game. But with that out of the way, let's begin. So back in the early 1990s and early 2000s, there was no such thing as updating a game. Technology just wasn't that advanced yet, so if your game had issues, you would have to release a whole new version for full price. One of the notable times of video game companies doing this is Nintendo with Ocarina of Time. The game wasn't exactly broken, but it had some bugs that needed fixing, and some parents, as well as a few communities, took issue with the game's contents. For example, Ganondorf's blood in the original Ocarina of Time was red, but after outrage from some very strict parents, Nintendo later changed it to green. So, how does Pokemon play into this? Well, the third versions exist to do this exact thing. They fix some overall bugs of the game, as well as improve some other aspects. For example, in Generation 2 with Crystal, Ice Path received its own tile set, so it actually looks like an ice cave and not an ordinary cave, like it did in Gold and Silver. However, Pokemon takes this a little too far, to a point where it changes so much that the third versions could just be considered sequels. Let's take a look at Pokemon Emerald, a beloved game in the Pokemon franchise. Pokemon Emerald isn't the worst when it comes to this, but it's definitely second place. So if you've played Pokemon Ruby or Sapphire, you'll remember upon beating the Elite Four and heading into the Champions Room, you fight Steven, right? You'll also remember that the 8th gym was Wallace, correct? Well, if you played Pokemon Emerald, that's not the case at all. The 8th gym is someone whose name I cannot pronounce, and the champion is Wallace, which is just... why? What was the point in changing the entire final boss? There was no reason for this at all, especially when you already have an Elite Four member that is majority water types. Yeah, they are an Ice type member, but out of their 5 team members, 3 of them have the water typing. This just feels counterproductive and especially confusing for those looking to play Gen 3. People who play Emerald are going to have a far different experience to those who play Ruby and Sapphire. You've also got some smaller changes, like every single Pokemon contest taking place in Lily Cove, as the other ones are replaced by battle tents. Certain gyms, such as Moss Deep, getting a complete redesign. They also brought back the animated front sprites from Crystal that happen whenever you enter a battle, as well as having animated back sprites for the first time. I don't know why those weren't in Ruby or Sapphire, but whatever, I guess. I also want to take a look at Platinum, which is honestly probably the worst when it comes to this, and thankfully the final third version we got, and holy fuck, when I say this is the worst, I mean it so badly. If you thought Emerald changing the entire final boss of the main story was bad, let me introduce you to Platinum's changes. For example, Platinum straight up takes the order of the gym leaders and fucks them all up. Fantina, the 5th gym in Diamond and Pearl, is now the 3rd gym in Platinum. Crash Awake, the 4th gym in Diamond and Pearl, is now the 5th gym, and Mainline is now the 4th gym. And again, why? What reason was there to make these changes? That's not the only ones either, there's a lot of storyline changes. Even just minor things, such as the story on the TV at the start of the game now being about Rowan returning from Kanto, or getting your starter earlier than you do in Diamond and Pearl. The game is also now set in winter, the pro tags have been redesigned, some moves have completely new animations, the Eterna, Hearthome, and Veilstone gyms have all been completely redesigned. The Elite Four's rooms got redesigned, and a lot more, and I just don't get it. I can understand the distortion world. You want Giratina, which I have to point out is called the Renegade Pokemon, to have its own feel and vibe to it. But the rest, I just don't understand. What was the point? Now, keep in mind I've only played a little bit of Platinum and none of Diamond and Pearl, so maybe there is a reason that someone in the comments can explain, but to me, this just feels unnecessary and makes picking what version to play even more difficult. Also, I honestly think Crystal is the best when it comes to this, but it still changes quite a bit. Like, a lot of locations being redesigned and even adding a whole new playable character, which is fine. I just think that should have been saved for Generation 3 or added to Gold and Silver. But overall, Crystal still did the least amount of damage. It's really Emerald and Platinum that I take massive issues with. When making a new version, I understand adding quality of life changes and fixing bugs, but I just think it's extremely frustrating that if you want the best premium experience for Gens 2, 3, and 4, you need to play Crystal, Emerald, and Platinum. There's no way around it, which sucks, because it makes the other versions completely useless. Why play Diamond and Pearl when Platinum is right there? What reason do I have to pick up Ruby and Sapphire when Emerald is right there? I think you understand my point by now though, so I won't keep dragging it on. But it's also why I just failed to understand why people want the rumored Z or Stars so badly. Would a definitive edition of Sun and Moon and X and Y be cool? Absolutely. But they'd also end up changing so much from the original games that I don't really think I'd want it. I'm fine with both of these generations as they are. I don't really need to nor want to see massive changes made just so Game Freak, Nintendo, whoever can sell it as a third version. Also, it's funny because these are such obvious cash grabs that it's kinda sad. Like, they were clearly made to profit more from each generation. They didn't have to make a third version at all, but they did anyways because it's Nintendo. Do you think they don't like money? Overall, I also just like what they're doing now more than entirely new versions of pre-existing games that I have to pay $60 for. DLC just works a lot better. You still have to pay, but at least you're getting new stuff added onto the game you already paid for. I just think it's a much better system than third versions. I also like what Black 2 and White 2 did, where the games aren't definitive editions of Black and White. They're direct sequels which expand on the story of their predecessors. But to be honest, that's pretty much all I have to say. Basically, I just don't like third versions all that much. I get why people do. Keep in mind, Crystal, Emerald, and Platinum are all great games, but I just wish they were made to be proper sequels instead of the definitive editions for Gold, Silver, Ruby, Sapphire, Diamond, and Pearl. Because those games are fucked over by the existence of the third versions, since they're the best ones to play. With that said though, if you enjoyed this, please go check out the Mainline Retrospect series. It takes a ton of time to make, and I'd like to see as much support for the series as possible. But anyways, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time.